Hi, this is Travis in the Uncanny Valley. I'm going to talk about how a little bit more about how I take things literally because um, I did a video on how I take things literally, and it's so pervasive, like it's at all times. So I thought of a bunch of more instances where um, that'll help me flesh out how much of an issue this is. So I go into whenever I go into a store to look for something. I don't generally do much shopping, uh, browsing. I go there with intent and with purpose, and I like to do my shopping in person because I need to be able to hold the thing and look at it. I don't want to buy something online. Yeah. So very often I go to the customer service desk or the person at the desk in that department, and usually that. And so the person will say, hi, can I help you? And I'll say, yeah, can you tell me if you carry such and such? Or can you tell me if you have any of such and such on hand? Or how many, whatever the question is. Um, excuse me. So they, I might have already browsed for a while, and just, felt it wasn't worth my effort to keep looking when there's someone that can search this on their database. So I will ask them, can you tell me if you carry this? Can you tell me if you have any on hand? Whatever it is, I ask them. Um, they'll look it up on the computer, um, and usually the case is that they don't. They'll say, "Oh, it looks like we don't carry that," or "It looks like we're out of stock," or they stopped making it. Whatever it was, because like I probably would have found the thing and not had to ask them, but otherwise, excuse me. But they almost invariably say, "Sorry, I couldn't help." And I didn't know how to take this for a while, but like I would just reply back to them. I'd say, you did help. Like I was asking if you could tell me if you carried it. You answered that question. Like that's, it was, I was taking it very literally, like, and they were taking it like as if I had additional questions built into there. Or I guess they were taking it, I'm guessing that they were taking it as if I had additional expectations of them, or maybe they take a lot of heat for not being able to physically produce a product that's made in another country. I'm not exactly sure what all their training is and what all they're told to say just as a matter of course, but it never quite made sense to me how I would go to a customer service person with a specifically worded question like that's meant to be within their scope of, of their job and their ability to provide that service. And my only question is, are you able to answer it? Sometimes they say, no, I'm not able to tell you. I can't, like, um, it, it shows we have two in stock, but we go and look and they have none. And they can't tell me whatever the thing is. But, like, anyways, that's me taking it literally and them taking it figuratively. And I don't know what all they pack into that. And I don't know if that's because of what all other customers asking them the same question or a similar question might have packed into that, and much different expectations about them needing to explain why they don't have it, or who knows what. I don't know what. Um, so another thing I take literally is, no offense. I'm trying to be more uh, validating in things like this and recognize that it's just my literal brain. When someone says that their fur babies, their animals, their pets that they bought somewhere are their real babies, and I don't say anything about this. Sorry if this is even offending you now, but like that's it. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. Like I, I'm trying to be polite and a more better about communicating the conveying the conscientious person that I am instead of playing upon so many other things that are there that could be uh, catered to. Anyways, um, so I was given blood like a few weeks ago, and so you got to do the questionnaire. They have a little laptop there, and they say, do all the questions and then flick the light switch, and then someone will come back in to go over everything with you and do the next steps. And the woman must have been like perched just outside the door or something, but to be able to see this. But like I'm going through the questions, um, answering the question. I go to answer a question, and this woman comes in and says, "How you doing?" I say, "Good, good. How you doing?" And she said, "That's your last question." And I'm like, "Okay, did I what? Like, did I offend you?" Like, I was I I didn't know what to think because it was so out of it was surreal. Like it didn't make sense in the context of our conversation, our very short conversation, and I did not recognize this woman. And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Oh, I know the quiz that well. I know that's your last question." I said, "Oh, okay." I asked you how you were doing, and you said that's your last question. So I was, uh, I mean, had it had she been in the room with me for longer and not entered the room with that statement, I would have understood it, but who knows? Um, yeah. So when someone asks me a generic greeting like "How's it going?" or "How have you been?" Um, so over the last couple of years, I've started to really take in and really, I guess, believe that people are saying that just to be polite, but it's still something uh, I have to be present of, like when I'm asked that question, or I might just default to being genuine because I don't have um, I don't have the filters to know uh, that they mean this as a not as a logical statement seeking data. They mean this as a social nicety um, to get the social nicety out of the way. Generally, you get that one fluke that every so often they're like, "No, I mean, like, I'm seriously like, how are you doing?" But you can tell by the way the emphasis they put on it, like they're making a point of saying, like, "No, I'm not doing the social norm." Like it feels like they're making a point. Like I know it's fake every other time someone asks you how you're doing, and I'm trying to be intentional about finding out how you're actually doing. But that just you know confirms that like people don't typically care, and so yes, I overshare a lot. I overshare in those situations when someone's like, "How are you doing?" And I'm like, uh, "Not very good," or there's a wide range of honest responses that I give. Of all the times I could just be uh, reactive, which is my a common unhealthy coping mechanism that I have. Of course, in this time, I think someone's reaching out and trying to make a connection in our like what would otherwise be a 3 second interaction. I'm thinking, oh, they're inquiring about my emotional state or my life or whatever, and yeah. So I'm getting better at recognizing that. Um, I don't know if I'm that much better at uh okay, so I'll say I'm not better at the responses, but I'm much better at keeping it brief because I still don't know how to um be genuine if I'm giving a, a, a fake response like doing great, awesome. If I'm not doing great, then I'm still going to give an honest response. I'm just going to recognize that um I'll keep my response very brief. And should they inquire more or whatever, uh, then I could take that as a reasonable prompt to supply more information. But otherwise, I'm just going to, uh, you know, make it a standalone statement. So it's not like pretty bad, and waiting for them to prompt, or wanting, them to feel like I want or need them to prompt. I'm genuinely just trying to answer a question. So if you ask me how I'm doing and I say, oh, day to day, like, and just leave it at that, like, I'm I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say. So if I'm just supposed to say great, like, I don't know a logical way to do that. Um, Another thing is when people say, like, about like a 6-year-old, they'll say, like, if it's a 6-year-old boy, it might say, "Oh, it's a something something young man there," and it's like I've always been hung up on that. I remember for over a few decades ago, that's not accurate at all. Like 19 is a young man, like 18 is a man, 18, 19 is a young man, and it progresses from there. Um, Younger than that is an old, whatever, teenager or adolescent, whatever the breakdown is. Um, so yeah, like, I understand what they're trying to do, but I'm always hung up on the words. Always. Yeah. Um, Another thing, I don't know if this is that I take it literally, or it's just that, like, okay, so I'm going to say it's not that I take it literally. It's that uh, I don't know the reasoning that's packed into questions. So if I'm taking uh, a profile test or something, and I pulled one up here that I've done before, and it's not that I'm taking it literally only. It's that there are so many possibilities that I don't know the way that it's meant. Um, so this question says, uh, you there's a couple here of real. I mean, were easy finds too, and they just stumped me right off the bat. Uh, you have always wanted a best friend, but never found one. Okay, so that's a two-part question. You've always wanted a best friend. Oh, and the options are very often, sometimes, rarely, and never. So the first part of that question is you've always wanted a best friend. So there's a factor, but never found one. There's another factor. So then I'm seeing that as five things. I'm seeing this could be answered in five different ways, or meant to have been asked in five different ways. Uh, you have always wanted a best friend, um, but uh, never at the same time found one. I guess it's hard for me to articulate that this how this doesn't make sense, but um, if each one of them is a option, you know, it's asking me, have I always wanted a best friend but never found one, or have I never found one when I'm not looking for a best friend? I guess it seems like there's too many options, and then yeah, I'll have to figure this out because I'm totally reading this five ways that I guess I can't articulate. It just makes so much sense to me. Like my mind breaks it down so instantly. Like I can't even articulate all the ways that this doesn't make sense. I'll go to this other question because this one seems. I think I can do this one a little better. It says, "Do you enjoy inventing your own words and expressions that might seem quirky to others?" There's three things in there. I mean, like, hopefully you can see those two. Do you enjoy inventing your own words and expressions that might seem quirky to others? So, do you enjoy inventing your own words? I have at times, but for the most part, my vocabulary is based on and driven by known vocabularies, like a shared language. That's what taking things literally is based on. So, like, I will I will at times knowingly use words against the common use because I'm so hung up on like, well, but that's what the word means. Like I'm stuck using it the way it means, even though I know now it's going to cause a problem because the listeners are going to take it a different way. Um, and expressions, yes, I enjoy inventing odd expressions. And then, so it's, do you enjoy inventing your own words? That could be yes or no. So let's say yes and no. And expressions. Well, that could be a yes or no. And that could be yes or no. That might seem quirky to others. Now I have to do mind reading. I have mind blindness, so like I couldn't offer the first clue. That's totally going to be based on whether I've been given that feedback and then whether I'd remember that, like whether that would stand out because um, I would say quirky is a pretty easy category to fall in. Um, Lots of things seem quirky to people. So ultimately, I'm trying to figure out like the reason I'm doing this particular video is because I'm thinking of a bunch more instances where I take things literally, and my goal in doing this is to try and uh, solidify symptoms. So I've done that, but then it's also ultimately going to be used for trying to understand um, what that's based in, what that's rooted in for me, and so ultimately, what does this mean? Like, is it a social skill that I didn't learn? And I think there's a part of it that is subsequently was a social skill set that I didn't learn. But at its base, I think it's a cognitive thing. Um, and maybe it's a process I didn't pick up on that I could have picked up on. But I have a hard time believing that because I'm recognizing things. I mean, it's possible. So maybe if I had been exposed to more social interactions, um, I could have picked up on how to drop off all the other random options of the way words could be meant and maybe more readily um, attach myself to the shared meaning that other people are naturally picking up on. But since I don't pick up on that, I'm inclined to think that it's a cognitive issue. And I use that word a lot because I understand things as sensory, social, or cognitive as far as the way I'm dealing with things. And so the Merriam-Webster dictionary says cognitive. It's an adjective of relating to being or involving conscious intellectual activity, such as thinking, reasoning, or remembering. And just to have that in that definition, that remembering is also added into there. Like my memory is, I used to say like horrible, but as I learned more that it's visual, that I have a visual database of things, and that's how I've always accessed my memories. It's just helping me, I guess, realize that it's not maybe as bad as I thought. It's just I didn't know how to um, access it. But then the second definition is based on or capable of being reduced to empirical factual knowledge, and like that is a paradox because like the one makes me think, you know, the first definition would lead me to believe that like I am lacking in cognitive abilities when it comes to literal words because I lack the shared understanding of which meaning to use. But then the second one, you know, helps me remember that like everything's got two sides to it. Like based on or capable of being reduced to empirical factual knowledge. Like it's that I am using words in their literal way. I'm using words based on their dictionary meanings, on their empirical factual knowledge. That is the disconnect. Like uh, typical children grow up and they learn what meaning to attach to things and all kinds of nuance that I didn't pick up on. And yeah, I didn't have much social interaction. But I don't have like a reduced capacity for that. I feel like I have almost no capacity for that. I mean, to be at my age and in so many contexts, need to prod for a little bit of assistance because I don't know what someone's saying. I mean, if someone says something in a little bit of an odd tone or a accent or anything that seems out of line for their voice or a particular cadence and someone else laughs, like I can't tell if it's an inside joke or a movie reference. And I hardly, if that happens, can take it at face value that it's from the situation we're actually in. And I think that might be also why I watched so many movies as a kid, like hundreds of movies a year, because I was trying to collect some of that shared social life that I didn't have, uh, that I couldn't come about organically. That's why I liked reading nonfiction. I liked reading dictionaries and encyclopedias since I can remember, because that is literal. That's data. That's not wishy-washy or emotional or made up stuff. The only time where I dipped into fiction was for like a year as a teenager, where like I didn't have any friends, and I was like, well, Stephen King supposedly, I mean, he's a famous author, and he wrote some things that were turned into good movies, and it's like, I'll read Stephen King because even though it's fiction, like it's a shared social experience. Like lots of people have read Stephen King, and not that I wanted to have stuff in common with people so that I could discuss it with them, but just so I could have that shared depth of experience. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, I'll think of more stuff probably. There'll probably be part 3 because this is a big part of my life that I take things literally.